Hey guys, Lazar here. So I created all these tutorials in a textual format. So now I'm gonna create a video for each of these technologies. And I'm probably gonna dive a little bit deeper into details for each of these technologies in the video version. The first one we are gonna go through is HTML. What I would ask you to do is download the Visual Studio Code, which is a code editor that can help us be more productive, managing all our code folders, files, and so on. So Visual Studio Code, it's a Microsoft app. So I already created a quick tutorial on this topic. It's called inside of this, I'm gonna link this below. So you have an environment setup folder, and inside you have a lesson MD. So here I'm explaining you can download VS Code. After you download it and install it, you can install a couple of extensions. So it will make your experience a bit more productive in Visual Studio Code. Here you can type extension name, you can install it, etc. And then after you do that, you can go to environment setup, settings JSON, and then copy all of this. Go back to your Visual Studio Code, click on the settings icon, click settings, click on this icon up top, and then copy it and save it. So once you do this, this basically file contains a bunch of little settings that your VS Code applies to your app. And then you should probably look something like it looks for me here, right here. What is HTML? HTML is hypertext markup language, which probably means nothing to you. It's just a tool browsers use for rendering certain things on the screen, displaying some stuff on the screen. So you write certain things in the code in HTML file. You want to put a title, you want to put an image, you want to put a video, embed YouTube video, whatever, and then it shows up on the screen. So HTML is written in files ending with HTML. The file, HTML file, how do you name the files? So this is called a root domain. So just github.com. That's like a main, it's called a root domain. So for the root domain, you create an index.html file. It's called index.html. So this file is considered like a main root file for your HTML website. If you had like github.com/about, you would create about.html file. So it's just some basic naming and how you can structure things for your HTML website or an app. So what is HTML? It consists of a bunch of HTML elements. What is an HTML element? HTML element just represents some type of content you want to display on a screen. So basically, if you want to show a paragraph, it's basically an HTML element. This is the entire thing. Now, it consists of a couple of things, which is an opening tag and closing tag. This is the tag name, the P, that represents a paragraph, right? So this is how you write the opening tag, and this is how you write the closing tag. And the content inside of that HTML element is called the element content or whatnot. So this is how the HTML element looks. Now we have a couple of many different HTML elements. You have a heading element, which is H1. This is the tag name. You also have H2, H3, heading 4, heading 5, and so on. You have a paragraph. You have an image. This is the tag name. Now you have div and span. So div is like a generic container element. So you can put any kind of content inside. Div by default takes the full width of the screen. The difference with the span, which is also like a generic container for you can put any kind of content inside, but it's an inline text container. So basically, if you put it in, if you wrap some chunk of text in a larger paragraph with a span, it's gonna stay there. It's not gonna take the full width. It's only gonna take the width of the content inside of that HTML element. Then you have a link. This is how you create a link in HTML. The tag name is A. In the href you put you can put some link inside. Form, input, button. This is how you put an order list and each basically a list item. So what does HTML file actually look like? Contains the HTML element. So this is like the parent element, the head element. This is like the main parent of the entire HTML file. It has two kids inside, basically two children inside of that parent. They are called head and then also you have body. So the difference between head and body is that inside of the head element, you add a bunch of meta details, meta tags. So those are all details that you don't see directly on the page. You don't see visually in the page of itself. The body tag, however, all the HTML elements you put inside the body tag is stuff you visually see on the screen. So this is the main difference. You'll see, of course, later stuff that goes into the head, stuff that goes into the body element, and so on. One of the main things that goes into the head is the title element. So title element is what you see in the browser tab. Hey, I'm a title. So if you do this, and then you can easily drag and drop this file inside your browser. So if I go to here, I don't know where I even put that. So here, yeah, this is the file. So this is the title you see in the tab, but we don't see anything on the page, right? So if we put some stuff inside of the body tag, maybe heading, I'm a heading, and then below we put some paragraph, some text here. Then if we refresh the page, here we see exactly that in the screen. So again, the head is for some meta details, some stuff happening in the background, and the body itself is for the stuff we see visually on the screen. Heading 1, paragraph, all the other elements can have attributes. An attribute is some text you put, like here, for example, class, and then whatever. So this is called an attribute. So some of these elements, all of them share some common attributes, which is ID and class. And later you'll see what the ID is and what the class is once we start styling the elements itself. But some elements, like image element, have some specific attributes. And for example, image element does not have a closing tag. So you learn this stuff along the way. It's nothing special. If you don't know how to add an image element to HTML, you can easily Google it and see an example. Anyways, image element has very specific two attributes. One is called source and another alt. So source is where you put a link to an image. You can even break this on multiple lines so it's easily readable. So what is source, what is alt? So this is like alternate description. So basically, if the link is broken on the page, you'll see written nature, and it's also good for screen readers, for people who can't see. So they cannot see the image, but this is read to them what the image is about. So that's the alt, and the source again linked to the image. So if you go and refresh the page, here we can see the image, and you don't see the alt, but this is just again in the background for screen readers as a helpful tool. You can go to this link, which is v3schools.com. Here they have a bunch of tutorials for CSS, JavaScript, HTML, blah, blah, blah. What I additionally tell everybody is to go here and go through all of these things, which they go into a lot more details about a lot more things. And you also have some quizzes, you can write some stuff, play around and so on. So but again, they go through much more stuff, and some stuff you don't necessarily need right away. That's why the stuff I explain here is like the bare minimum stuff, but enough for you to do some HTML, create some HTML, and just kick off your experience with it. So an example, you can find it also in HTML folder and then example HTML. So one thing I forgot to mention is above HTML main parent tag, you have doc type HTML. This is just something you write as an additional standard thing for HTML. You don't need to understand what it is. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. You don't need to understand every single tool you're gonna use. I mean, understand the tool, but not understand how the tool is made itself. And like the ins and outs of the tool, like you don't break your brain trying to understand every single thing. Your job is to understand what tools exist, what their purpose is, and how to implement, what tool to use for what use case. And additionally, it's a bonus if you know how to use the tool. You don't need to Google every few minutes. But of course, that's like a majority of my job as well. You don't need to remember everything. It's enough for you to understand what you need to use. Once you come to the moment that you actually need to use the tool and you don't need to, you can easily Google the documentation or ask anything on Google. You'll find other people giving you solutions and examples for you what you want to implement. So very small example is, here is an HTML file. We named it example.html. It has opening, so main HTML parent element. We have head. The title, it says example HTML file. And inside the body, the main tag, we have few things. We have a heading, so it's H1. We have paragraph. And inside paragraph, we have a link element that we didn't mention prior. So link element has a href attribute, and inside href attribute you just put the link where this word will link to, and you see how it's inline inside of the text. So basically we only select some chunk of the text and then wrap it in a element, so it has opening and closing a tag, and then here a has this href attribute, and then it has a link where it links to inside, and then you have a comma, and then the text continues, and then again, if you want to link the word inside of this part, we also wrap it in a element, but there's another attribute, target underscore blank, and this is basically saying, because by default, if you click this link, and we can do it right now, it opens in the same tab, goes to that link in the same tab. If you put a target underscore blank and you click it, it opens a new tab. So basically those are some things you can easily Google, and I encourage you to Google over time if you don't know how something is done. How can my link open in a different tab, and you will immediately see the target underscore blank. So don't try to remember everything in advance. When you come to the use case, Google it, you'll see it, use it, learn it, and you move on. That's my best advice to you as a developer. The next thing I'm gonna give you is a task. So in the task folder, and every tutorial will have a task and a solution provided as well. So you can do that task, try to recreate it, try to repeatedly do it. If you can't do it the first time, it's fine. Google solutions, try to not look into the solution. Try to do the task itself without looking at my way of solving the task, because if you really get stuck and need to see, you can always look at the solution, but I encourage you to try to solve it yourself. And then even if you look at it, it doesn't matter. The point is, if you can at some point recreate it yourself without looking, even if you repeat it like 15-20 times, at the end, if you are able to do that, recreate it yourself, and you understand what you've done, that's what all it matters. So very quick task is create an HTML file, index HTML, a main file, and imagine you're viewing a single blog post web page. So visualize that page has a header, and inside the header you have a logo image, so basically an image which is your logo, and when you click on it, it leads to https://google.com, and then you also have a button which is a kind of call to action, and inside the button it says contact. Then you have a main content area, and inside there you have blog post title, so a heading, you have some blog post text, and then inside of the text you can link few of the words or sentences within the text, and then there's a blog post image. And then at the bottom of all of that you have a footer, and then inside the footer you have a list with 3 items, and each item inside has a link to about, privacy policy, contact, linked to wherever, it doesn't matter. So go ahead, I'm gonna wait for you to try and solve this.
2,000 years later.
How was it? Did you have any clue how to deal with this? It's fine. So there are a couple of HTML elements that I didn't mention that you can easily Google or solve in many different ways. So how I've done it, so we have in the body tag, we have 3 main things: header, the main area, the main part of the page, and the footer. So the header, main, and footer, these are basically HTML elements where you can use div. You literally don't need to use header, footer. You can use div as a basic container element to put some other stuff inside. But from a more recent update of HTML, they gave us these more descriptive HTML elements. They are still like basic containers. You can put any stuff inside. They're just more descriptive visually. It says this is a header, this is like a main part of the page, and this is the footer. Nothing more than that. Inside header, we said we want to have an image, which is our logo, and when you click on it, it links to something. So we can put an image element inside the link element. The link element leads to google.com. The image element has an in-source link to our logo image. Then a button is just a basic button element with contact inside. Then the main content area has three things. Has a heading of our blog post, has a paragraph with some text inside, and here we linked a couple of words. And then the blog post image, so again, an image element with some source link inside. That's it. And in the footer, we have URL element, which is unordered list. So basically, each of these li elements are list items. That's why it's LE, it's a list item. And each list item inside has a link to about page, privacy policy page, contact page, link to whatever. So basically, this is how we can structure things. Again, don't try to break your brain how to do this. You can always just very rationally Google, how do I add a list, HTML list? And then you add a link inside of each item, so it links to somewhere when you click it, and so on. So basically, Google it once if you don't know how to deal with it, and you will learn it over time. If you have a use case in HTML, you don't know if there's an HTML element for, again, Google that as well. How do I add a paragraph, a heading, an image? How do I add a video? How do I embed a YouTube video in my HTML? Just Google all those things. Easily, you'll get a bunch of solutions for it. You'll see you can implement it, you can test it, and so on. And we can test our solution as well very quickly. If I go to the task and I drag this into my browser, there you go. It looks awful because, again, there's no style here. It's just basically, I found some logo image in the Google, I linked to it, there's a button, and this is our header. There's no styles to it. Again, we'll do that in the CSS, but this is HTML. It's just basically content you want to see on the page with no styles whatsoever, just straight raw content. So it's a heading, it's a paragraph, there's an image, and there's some list. See the bullet points? So basically it's unordered list. It's not numbered. So it's about, privacy policy, and contact. That's pretty much it. That's the HTML. Next up is CSS. So see you in the next one.